Hello, everyone. This weekend we celebrate the Transfiguration of the Lord. Our first reading is from the book of Daniel. Our psalm response is from Psalm 97, and the refrain that we will sing is, "The Lord is King, the Most High over all the earth." Our second reading is from 2 Peter, and our gospel is from Matthew. So, the book of Daniel, our first reading, is a type of literature called, and I always have a hard time saying this, apocalyptic. So apocalyptic literature. If I say it slow, I got it. So apocalyptic literature. In this type of writing, the audience and the theme is always the same, or almost always the same. So the audience is typically a people who are experiencing some form of deep oppression. And the theme is always a theme of hope and of God's faithfulness. Now, particularly what's important in this first reading is in this heavenly vision that we get, we see this term, the Son of Man, used in this revelation of heaven. And Jesus uses this same term, Son of Man, to describe himself in today's gospel. So during this transfiguration event that we'll hear about in the gospel, Jesus is referencing this first reading that we're going to hear at Mass this weekend. And that would have been of particular relevance to Peter, James, and John, who, like Jesus, were all Jews and knew the scriptures well. So Jesus was making a connection to what was happening on the mountain at this time in the gospel back to this reading from the book of Daniel. So remember that theme of, again, with apocalyptic literature, of hope and faithfulness of God. The second reading is really simple. It's Peter, years later, recounting the events that happened in the gospel today. So Peter's talking about the transfiguration that we are going to hear about in the gospel. So remember that I talked about faithfulness and hope. So right before they went up to the mountain, Jesus told the apostles about his crucifixion and that he would need to die and rise again. And of course, they had no idea what that really meant. And then they go up on this mountaintop to have some prayer time with Jesus. So Peter, James, and John ascend the mountain with Jesus. And up there, they have this extraordinary experience of God. Jesus is transfigured, glowing before them. Their eyes are open to God Jesus in his full glory. In addition to that, they see Elijah and Moses on Jesus's right and left. So again, of particular importance to them, especially because Elijah and Moses represented the prophets and the law. Elijah the prophets, Moses the law, which would have been the foundation for all Jewish teaching at that time. And remember, Peter, James, John, and Jesus were all good practicing Jews. So this would have been of particular importance to them. Also, if we remember from the Gospels, a lot of times Jesus seems to be at odds with the religious leaders of that time period. So to see Jesus not only in union with Elijah and Moses, but raised above them, kind of emphasized that Jesus's point that he always made throughout the Gospels, that he was not sent to abolish the law, but actually to fulfill it. And so some things that maybe we can think about this weekend is transfiguration moments in our own lives. So remember, Peter, James, and John had this intense experience of Jesus. And in fact, it was so intense for Peter that Peter wanted to make tents for everybody, essentially saying, let's stay up on this mountain. Let's just camp here and we'll stay here because this is wonderful. And if we think about those maybe transfiguration moments in our own lives when we had this intense experience of Christ, maybe it was during a time when we were really stressed about something and we just really felt the presence of God in our lives saying, relax, I'm right here, we got this, you're going to be okay. Or maybe God, you were struggling with a decision to make and you felt this intense movement inside of you to move or to be called to do something, where you undoubtedly knew that was a Jesus moment in your life. Or maybe it was a moment in your life when you really decided to become serious about your faith life, where you weren't just culturally Catholic anymore, but your faith life was going to be a central part of your life and not just something you were born into. So a lot of times, or often, a lot, with these transfiguration moments in our lives, we can sometimes become complacent. I had this intense experience of God. I just want to stay here. And what this gospel is kind of reminding us is those moments are meant to strengthen our faith and give us hope, but we're also called to action. We're also called to continue the ministry of Jesus. So we have these mountain experiences to be strengthened by the presence of God, but we're also being called out to not remain on that mountaintop, but to go out and to serve. And so as you pray through the readings this weekend, what have been those transfiguration moments in your lives? When have you really felt the presence of God? And how has that changed you? And maybe how is God calling you to revisit that today?